Well, welcome to another little green cheese video tutorial. This time it's Cotswold. There's the ingredients up on the screen. You can pause if you wish to write them all down. The recipe is available on littlegreencheese.com. So firstly, we measure out all of our ingredients, lay them out, and we sanitize our equipment. We make sure everything's clean either by boiling or the weak bleach solution. Then we fill up our stock pot that has been boiled for about 15 minutes, and we add our 8 litres or 2 gallons of milk. Now, because I was using non-homogenised or cream-lined milk, I had to actually stir the cream through a little bit there. Okay, so we've heated the milk, and the milk is at 32 degrees Celsius or 90 Fahrenheit, and we're adding the starter culture. This is a mesophilic starter culture, and in this instance I'm using type M030, which I think is about the same as a type A culture. So we're going to let that rehydrate for about a minute, just floats on top. And after about a minute, then we stir that direct set culture into the milk. So we're waiting for it to dehydrate. I should have sped this part up, shouldn't I? There we go. Now we're just stirring that through. We'll stir that for about a minute so it's all the way through the milk. So we're stirring top to bottom, making sure all the cream's mixed through the milk itself. Now there was no additional cream, it was just floating on top of the milk. So stirring top to bottom, nice and gently. You can see on the thermometer there that the temperature is around 32 degrees or 90 Fahrenheit. Okay, a little while later, and it's time to put the lid on. We're covering the pot. Before we do that, just take away the thermometer. Pop the lid on, and we're going to let that ripen for 45 minutes, as you can see there on the phone. So 45 minutes later, just make sure that the temperature is at 32 degrees Celsius still, foot at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And that looks like it is. So we're going to stir that now. We're going to make the milk move whilst we add the diluted rennet. We're going to stir that. Oh, before we add the rennet, we're adding the annatto. I should have said that. Sorry about that. So the annatto that's been diluted. And at this point, if you needed to, if you were using homogenised milk, you could add the calcium chloride now if you wish. So the annatto is thoroughly mixed through. That gives the cheese a final rich yellow colour. Now we're adding the rennet. Apologies for that. So we're just pouring that in whilst the milk is stirring. So we're going to stir that for about 1 minute. So making sure that's well mixed. So just take our thermometer because I'm going to cover that now and we're going to allow that to rest and coagulate for 45 minutes. There we go, lid back on. And another 45 minutes. So 45 minutes later, the milk is set. And we have to make sure we spray our hands with white vinegar or wash them thoroughly. And we're going to check for a clean break. Here we go with my pinky. Pop it in there, and the curd should just split apart. Yep, that's perfect. And now we're going to cut the curds. We're going to cut them about 6 millimeters or 1/4 inch. That's the cube size we're going to try. I'm using a curd cutter, but you can use just a plain old knife. For the horizontal cuts, you can simply cut at 45-degree angles. And I find that makes the cubes just the right size. Now I have to push this rather forcefully because the whole curd mass decided it wanted to move. So we've done the horizontal cuts, which are usually the hardest, and we're just going to do the vertical cuts with a curd knife. For your pleasure, I've sped this up. I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes watching me cut curds. But anyway, as I said, 6 millimeters, which is the same size that I cut the horizontals. So there we go. As good as we can, not too rough. There we go, all the curds cut now. And we're going to let that rest now. We actually let the curds, what's the word for it? We're going to let it knit. So what happens is the curd cubes actually firm up. If you started to stir them straight away, then they have a tendency to break. So we'll just wait 5 minutes. There we go. And you'll see that a fair bit of whey has been expelled just by cutting the curds. So now we're going to stir the curds gently, maintaining the target temperature of 32 Celsius or 90 Fahrenheit. And if there are any larger cubes in there, we're going to break those up with the edge of the spoon. So we'll just check the temperature there, make sure that is at the target. And as I said, we're going to stir for 20 minutes. Now, thankfully, due to the magic of video, you're not going to be watching me there for 20 minutes stirring. Okay, I've stirred for 20. You can see that the curds have shrunk dramatically. Okay, and that's just 20 minutes at the target temperature. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to increase the temperature now. We're going to gradually raise the temperature. You can see I'm turning the gas back on. We're going to raise the temperature to 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's over the period of 35 minutes. So it's going to take a while. So as you can see, we're at 40 degrees Celsius now. Once you get there, we stir for an additional 30 minutes. So that's 30 minutes at 40. That's done now, and you can see that that's all lovely. We're going to let the curds rest for 5 minutes now. So we'll just pop the lid on. So we're going to move that over to the cheesecloth lined colander, and we're going to pour the curds into, and you'll see that they have formed a mass at the bottom of the pot. If you wanted to save the whey, you could do that. I already had a big pot of whey in the fridge anyway. You can only drink so much whey or use so much whey. Okay, and there's the curds. There, it doesn't take long for them to drain, so with clean hands, just make sure that you wipe those out. There we go, get them all out. So I'll let it drain for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to move the curd mass into the pot. Now they've actually formed into a single mass now. And you can see that there. I'm just draining a little bit more. Just slight pressure. So just unwrap the cheesecloth and get all the curds out. It comes out in one big lump. Alright, with some little lumps. That's okay. Get rid of that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mill the curd. So we're going to mill it down to about a thumbnail sized pieces. So that'll take a little while. Obviously I've cleaned my hands with soap, and then afterwards I spray them with white vinegar, and that kills any airborne moulds that may infect the cheese at this stage, or the curds. So it takes a little while to mill the cheese. It's quite a relaxing process. Okay, we've thoroughly milled the cheese. Oh, all right, there's a little bit more. Now it's milled. Oh, no, all right, there's a bit more. Okay, you've got to work quickly there because it'll start to knit back together again, so give it a quick stir. This cheese has a tendency to stick together. Give it any chance, so don't allow it to rest too much. Don't work the curds too much or too roughly, because you'll start... they'll start expelling a lot of the butter fat that you want to retain in the curds. So that's all thumbnail size pieces now. Okay, so okay, I'm a perfectionist. You can stop now. He's persistent, isn't he? Okay, all the curds are milled. Right, now we're going to add our cheese salt. So we pop in the salt, which is, there's a tablespoon there, and a second one. Actually, it's only half a tablespoon for the second one. So it's 1.5 tablespoons of cheese salt, coarse cheese salt. And just give that a quick stir so it's distributed evenly through the curd mass. Okay. So the next ingredients are dried onions. So that's 1.5 teaspoons of dried onions. So they go in as well. And that's what gives the Cotswold its pickled onion flavour. There's one final ingredient into the curds, and that is dried chives. So we put dried chives into the mix, and we give that a good stir. They actually, the onions and the chives start to rehydrate with whatever excess curd, whatever excess whey there is. So you find that it starts to become a little bit dry, which is okay. Certainly doesn't reflect in the final outcome of the cheese, which is a very moist cheese. So they're mixed all the way through. You don't want like a big lump of chives sitting there on the top of your cheese. You want it all the way through. So just gently mix it all up, all the way through those onions and the chives, all the way through your curd mass. Okay, what I'm going to do now is we're going to place it into the mould. So I've got a cheesecloth lined mould there. It's actually a cleaning cloth, which I sterilised, and I sped that bit up, so it takes forever. So we're just putting the curds into the mould, gently patting that down as we need to. And this is a 2-pound mould or 90-gram mould. The diameter across the top is 145 centimetres. Not sure what that is in inches. Sorry, not 145 centimetres, 145 millimetres, so 14.5 centimetres. Okay, so then we put the follower on top. And with my press, I've got a little spring, a 50-pound spring. So I'm going to tighten that down to 5 kilos or 10 pounds. I'm going to do that for 15 minutes. Now, you will notice that there is a fair bit of what you would think is creamy whey. It's actually not. It's actually onions rehydrating, and that is actually quite oniony flavour, the excess whey that's coming off there. Okay, so the time's up, and we're going to gently unwrap that. The reason I say gently is because it's only been pressed for 15 minutes. So we have to be careful because the curd mass is a little bit unstable. So gently lift that out of the basket. And we're going to gently turn it over. So I've just flattened the cheesecloth. Now, all that sink has been sterilised. It's been wiped down with a weak bleach solution. It's a little bit tricky. Just be careful because I have known these cheeses to fall apart at this stage. You want to be very gentle. Okay, lovely. Don't apply too much pressure. So that's in place. Just pick that up, pop it in the basket again. Push it all the way down to the bottom. Okay, just make sure that there's not any excess at the bottom of the basket. So you're trying to tug the cheesecloth away a little bit. Doesn't make funny lines on the final cheese. So then just get the excess, fold that over the top, pop the follower on top, and we're going to press it this time at 15 kilos or 30 pounds for 10 minutes. So you'll still get a little bit of that creamy whey, which is highly onion flavoured. You'll get that here coming out. Okay, so 10 minutes has elapsed. Sped this bit up. So we're going to remove it from the press again. You don't have to be so gentle. Take it out and rewrap. You can see the cheese is actually forming quite nicely there. Just gently turn that over. And we're going to press this at 20 kilos or 40 pounds for 2 hours. Let's put that excess cloth over, whack the follower on top. There we go. So that spring's almost closed all the way up for me because it's a 50-pound spring. Okay, this should be the last time I flip it over. Okay, so I'm going to press at the full extent. So that's 25 kilos or 50 pounds. So the spring, my 50-pound spring, will be totally closed up this time. And I leave it for 24 hours at room temperature. You don't have to store it anywhere special. As long as the temperature is pretty cool in your house, you know, about around 21 degrees Celsius, no big deal. Okay, and this is the next day. Clean my hands. Lovely. All good cheesemakers should have a squirty bottle with some white vinegar in it to kill any moulds off. Okay, so we'll remove that from the mould. And we're going to place it on a sushi mat on a cheese board. Now the sushi mat was boiled. I boiled that for 15 minutes to make sure it didn't have any wild moulds on it, so we don't get any fungus growing on our cheese whilst it's air drying. So it's got a little bit of a ridge on the top, so I'm just going to fix that up before I put it on the mat. So I'll get a sanitised knife and I'll trim that up. See the ridge there? You can see the chives all the way through, even distribution, nice and easy. There we go. So just leveling it. I'm putting a bevel on it, for want of a better word. That off-cut, unmatured cheese does taste quite nice. So you could try it at this stage, no big deal. Okay, so once we put it onto the sushi mat after we've trimmed it and we think it looks beautiful, we're going to let that air dry at 21 degrees Celsius, and we're going to turn that twice daily until it's touch dry. And that could take between 2 to 5 days. I've known it to actually be touch dry in a day if it's warm, and the humidity's low. So yeah, just be careful. Just check that. So just turn it a couple of times a day. So there it is there. Now all we do then is we either vacuum pack it or wax it. You can let it develop a natural rind, but you will have to wipe it with a brine solution just about every day to stop any mould forming. So there it is in its vacuum pack. Now I ripen it at 13 degrees Celsius in 80 to 85% humidity for 1 to 3 months, and there's the final product. Doesn't it look lovely? The lines in it are actually the onion that is formed. So there you have it. That's how to make Cotswold cheese, better known as pub cheese in the UK. It's delicious.